Hi guys, so today's video is going to be a list of some authors whose works I've read and enjoyed, and now I want more. I just want more of them. I'm just gonna get right into it. The first author to kick off this list would be Joe Abercrombie. The only thing by him I have completed would be the First Lot trilogy, and I definitely enjoyed it, but there were some elements of it that I didn't absolutely love, but his character work is just so good. I loved Joe Abercrombie's character work in that story. I feel like his ability to make you feel for I don't even know if I could say gray characters. I just feel like bad people. His ability to make you feel for some pretty terrible human beings is really admirable, and I would love to read more of his works, especially because I have heard that everything else set within the world that the First Law trilogy is in is even better. If you're not sure where to go from First Law, one of you was nice enough to leave a very detailed comment on one of my videos explaining where to go, the reading order, everything like that. So I will go ahead and copy and paste that information down below in case anybody else was a little unsure like I was. The next author on this list would be Marie Lu. I've read one thing by Marie Lu. I read it very recently, and that would be The Kingdom of Back. It is historical fiction, magical realism, so very different from her other works, which from what I understand are like fantasy dystopian type stories. Very different, and I've heard good things about her other works, and I loved The Kingdom of Back. I know it's not going to be anything like anything else she's written, but I loved Kingdom of Back so much that now I'm willing to just try anything by Marie Lu. I felt like it was the right level of pretty and flowery without being over the top. I adored that book. I found it so hard-hitting. I don't know if it's going to be as emotional of a ride in her other stories, but I will say, I do remember one time looking at one of her books at a used bookstore, and some random person I didn't know was like, oh my gosh, I love Marie Lu. That definitely has me excited. Next on this list would be Tessa Gratton. The only thing I've read by Tessa Gratton would be The Queens of Innisleer, and I've said in past videos that that book was so boring, but so good, and I don't know, I'm kind of wondering, does she have anything that's not quite so boring? Because, man, that book deserves to be, it just has such a low rating on Goodreads, and it hurts a little bit because you can just tell when you read it the care that was put into every stupid freaking beautiful sentence. I just feel like it was masterful writing. The characters were so nuanced in that story. It was just freakishly slow. So I would like to read more Tessa Gratton and see maybe if there's some other stuff that's a little more accessible, and maybe just I want to like more of her books so I can shove her books at people, because I don't know, I feel like the Goodreads average rating has done her dirty for that one. Next up we have Brandon Sanderson, and I've read a lot of Brandon Sanderson. I've read basically all of the main Cosmere books. I've read a lot of his young adult stuff, but the dude writes a lot of books. The only thing by Brandon Sanderson that I just don't care about is the completion of The Wheel of Time. I'm not one of those people that is such an intense Brandon Sanderson fan that I'm going to force myself to read, like, 11 books in order to get to the last few that he wrote. I read the first 4 Wheel of Time books. I didn't love them, so I'm not going to read that many more books just to finish everything by Brandon Sanderson. But he has a bunch of short stories. He has a bunch of random other books that if you look up, like, what has Brandon Sanderson written? You'll find so many books that I feel like I've never even heard of. And I'm like, gosh darn it, there's so many. I don't know that I need to read his Magic the Gathering book, despite loving Magic the Gathering, but there are still some other things. There's some middle grade, there's a comic I want to read, there's some of his novellas. There's a lot. He's written a lot. Next on this list would be Julie Kagawa. This is the author of the Shadow of the Fox trilogy. I have talked about this trilogy quite a bit recently, and kind of honestly for the last couple years, because I read the first one and I was like, hey, I really liked this, and I read the second one, I was like, I thought it was okay, but I think it's leading us into the third, and then I read the third. What do you know? I loved the third. So now that I know that she can write a really good story and nail the ending and make me really love the characters and make me emotional about the fates of these characters, now that I know this, I want to read something else by this author, perhaps everything else by this author. The only thing that has kept me back from buying her Iron Fae series, I think is what it's called, is, my goodness, I know I'm being shallow, but those covers, not for me. I do not like them. I've seen them at my local used bookstore before. They're pretty much always there. They're like $3, and I see them and I'm like, no. However, I still really want to read more by her, and I'm not gonna let that deter me. I will either pick up those books with their hideous, I feel bad saying hideous covers. Somebody worked hard on those covers. They're just not my thing. They've got like people's faces plastered right up front, right really close. Despite that, I will either get the books from my used bookstore at some point, check them out from the library, or get them on Kindle or something. I just really want to read more by this author. Next up would be kind of a surprise one on this list, and that would be Trisha Levin. The reason it's a surprise is because I think the only other thing I'm aware of that she's written that I haven't read would be her Daughter of the Pirate King story. So I recently read The Shadows Between Us by her, and I thought it was hilarious. It was a good old time. It was like candy. It was just, while you were in it, it was just like, this is the best. It was just so much fun. It's not necessarily a hard-hitting book or anything, but I had a good time with it. And The Daughter of the Pirate King and its sequel, Siren Queen or something like that, I still would like to pick up because I found the other one so fun. I definitely think that this other story of hers is maybe perhaps geared toward a slightly younger audience. It might be closer to middle grade, which I'm okay with, but I guess for me, I'm more excited to see what this author does in the future. Although I do still plan to check out the other series. Next up, we have V.E. Schwab. I've read quite a few things by V.E. Schwab, but she still has one series I haven't read that I am very interested in. I believe it's called City of Ghosts. There's another series she has called The Archive that I've heard fantastic things about, but from what I understand, she had some issues with the publishers for that one. She might still be trying to get the rights back, and I just don't know that we're going to be seeing a continuation of that story anytime soon, although I have heard really fantastic things. Next on this list would be Bridget Camera. She is the author of A Curse So Dark and Lonely and A Heart So Fierce and Broken. I read both of those books this year, and I'm definitely really excited for the third one in that series, but she has written some other things. Specifically, there's a book called Letters to the Lost that I've heard is very good. I've heard it's quite emotional, very gripping, very heart-wrenching, but also just a lovely story. So I really want to check that one out. I really enjoyed her other books. I just want to keep up with her. She seems like a cool lady, and her books are really enjoyable. Last two authors on this list, I'm more excited about what's to come. One of them would be Laura Sebastian, whose debut series, The Ash Princess, which I have to concentrate every single time I say Ash Princess so that I don't accidentally say Trash Princess, because that's what my husband always calls it. Anyway, I read her debut trilogy, and I thought she knocked it out of the park with the conclusion to that series, everything leading up to it, the first two books, that would be everything. The first two books I also really enjoyed. I just thought they were fun. And then I read that third one and I was like, oh shoot, this was really emotional, and you tied everything together really well. So I thought that she did a great job with that first trilogy. And now I just can't wait to see what comes next. I have seen on Instagram that she has something in the works. Last on this list would be Laini Taylor. I adored the Strange the Dreamer duology. I will say, the writing in that story is flowery, and I don't really like flowery writing, but oh my gosh. I was fine with it though, because one, I'm like, she's obviously really talented, even if it's not my thing, I still appreciate it. And second, the themes in that story and the characters, I just ended up falling in love with. I thought I wasn't gonna like that book at all when I first started, and I really had to push through, and I'm so glad I did because I loved it. The only other thing by her I've read is the first book, Daughter of Smoke and Bone, in that trilogy. I want to eventually get back to that one, but just like with Laura Sebastian, for me, it's more that I want to see what comes next for Laini Taylor. That's it for now of some authors that I want to either keep an eye on, like their works, see what they're doing in the future, not the authors themselves. They could live their lives, so that sounded creepy. That's it for now for some authors whose works I am either continuing to be on the lookout for, or am wanting to go back and read some of their earlier works. There are, I'm sure, other authors that I feel this way toward, but these were just the ones that I wanted to chat about today. Thanks so much for watching though. I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.